Hey, this is Joe Pusateri, and I am living the sober life. The sober life is an outstanding way to live. I used to live a terrible life, a drunken life, and I'm glad that I don't live that life anymore. But the good news is, I don't live a normal life now that I just don't drink. I live a life that is above whatever I could have imagined in the past. I have good relationships. I have hope. I have meaning. I have good health. I have a spiritual path to engage. I have tools and steps to take in order to deal with the frustrations and stresses of life. I'm living the sober life. Today, I want to talk about the third step of 12-step recovery. So, the third step is made the decision to turn our lives and our will over to the care of God as we understood Him. So, first thing that needs to be noticed is that this God as we understood Him can include your God. So if you are somebody who is deeply religious in one religion or another, one flavor or another, and you're a very strong, dedicated Christian, and you say, I just can't handle this higher power stuff. There's only one higher power, and that's the only one that I can believe in. Congratulations. That is the power greater than yourself as you understand Him. And he may have a name and he may have a son, and that is wonderful. For other people who are in a different religion or in no religion or have a lot of hangups about religion, the good news is you don't have to have it all figured out at this point. I'm a Christian pastor. However, I have to be true to my story, and my story is that I was not religious when I came in. In fact, I was kind of anti-religious. And the reason I was anti-religious is because I had terrible, terrible experiences with the church. I had terrible experiences with people who called themselves Christians. I had all kinds of ideas about theology. And I had prejudices about theology. Some of those were grounded in fact. Some of them were grounded in my fantasies or my misconceptions. But suffice it to say, I had a lot of hangups about religion. And if I came in and somebody said I needed to get with one God or another, I would have walked right back out the door when I first came in. So I'm glad that this is a power greater than ourselves, a higher power of our own conception and own understanding. Because in the very beginning, I had none. I just had to start with the idea that there might be a God. That's as far as I could get, and I found that the God that I found that God was far more gracious than I could ever imagine. So anyway, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. The third step is made a decision to turn our lives and our will over to the care of God as we understood Him. What does that mean? Well, what it means is that running my life is not my job. What? How could that possibly be true? How could it be true that running my life is not my job? I mean, who else's job would it be? What else am I here to do? And as strange as it sounds, it's true. Running my life is not my job. If my life was like a play, it would be natural for me to assume that I'm the director of my life. If my life was a company, it would be natural for me to assume that I was the CEO of this company called my life. And the fact of the matter is, or at least what we're asking you to consider and to try on in the third step, is that that's not the case. That if your life is a play, God is the director, a benevolent power greater than you, and you are just an actor. You are an actor in your life to the degree that your job is not to run the show. Your job is to just take direction from the director. If your life is a company, then you are not the CEO. God is the CEO. You are a janitor. And your job as the janitor is to sweep the floors in this organization and institution called your life. So I don't know what the CEO has in mind. I don't know what the director has in mind. And if I'm going to be most faithful to my part in my life, which is to follow direction so that everything will run great, because I think, if there's a God, then God's going to do a much better job running my life than I am, right? And I demonstrate that abundantly in all the mistakes I've made with my life and all the people that I've hurt and ruining my health and running my life into the ground. So, maybe God will do a better job than I will. But if I'm going to be faithful to following the direction of a better director, then I have to stop trying to anticipate what the director is going to tell me to do. I have to stop trying to figure out what would be the best direction. I have to get my mind out of the director's chair and out of the CEO's office and put my mind into following direction. And the way we say that in 12-step recovery is that we made a decision to turn our lives and our will over to the care of God as we understood Him. So making the decision is just like what it sounds. It's just making the decision. You don't have, it doesn't say that you have to have your life figured out. You don't have to have all the direction figured out. You don't have to have God's will figured out. You just have to make the decision to hand it over to God's will. And the difference between a decision and an intention is that a decision is followed with action. So you can make the intention to do something and then never follow through. If you make the decision, it becomes a bona fide decision the moment that you begin taking action. Now, in 12-step recovery, the way that we hand our life and our will over to the care of God as we understood Him is by taking the action immediately following, which is an inventory. And it's where we go through our lives and we look at all of the things about ourselves that need to be examined. And that is what step 4 is all about. So I'll talk about step 4 when it gets to step 4. But the third step is making that decision. And it's making a decision, following it with action, which is what makes it a decision. And it's a decision to hand my life and my will over to the care of God and God's will, not knowing what God's will is, and trusting that God's going to do a better job of it than me. So I'll just say this and then I'll stop. I remember when I was trying to get sober, there was a part of me that really wanted to let go, and I'm speaking, these are things that are happening kind of way beneath the surface of my ability to think consciously about it. So there was a deep part of me that wanted to let go, and there's another part of me that just couldn't find the courage to let go. And an image that comes to my mind is I felt like I was hanging on the edge of a cliff, right? And I felt like, well, if I let go, I'm just going to fall. Like if I let go, then, there's no ground underneath my feet. I'm just going to go into a free fall. And I don't know if I'm going to hit the ground with a thud or if I'm going to bounce off the walls, or I don't know what's going to happen to me. Like I can't let go. Like I'm hanging on for dear life here. And what I came to realize is it wasn't that I was like hanging on a cliff trying not to fall. It's like I was upside down grabbing onto the grass, not letting go so God could pull me up. And in retrospect, it's like, why in the world would I not want God to run? Well, I can tell you why I didn't want God to run my life. It's because I didn't know God. I didn't have any good working conception. All I had was all of my prejudices and all of my antipathy and all of my dislike. And sometimes I'll use the word outright hatred towards the church and towards religious people because I saw them as bigoted and hypocritical and arrogant, and I didn't really experience a lot of good Christian behavior from other Christians. Now, part of that is my perception that there were probably plenty of good religious people, good Christians in my life, and I just was blind, to their actions. But made the decision to turn my life and my will over to the care of God. And remember, it's to the care of God. So that should give you some indication that, we're not handing it over to the wrath of God. We're handing it over to the care of God. And in my experience and the experience of most people I know that have gotten sober and living in recovery, living the sober life, it is a loving, benevolent, compassionate, caring God indeed that runs our lives today. All right. Thank you. Take care. God bless. See you soon. I used to live a terrible life, a drunken life, and I'm glad that I don't live that life anymore.